Alright, so this tutorial is on the connection editor, and right now we have our control box and we have our sphere. We're going to make this really simple. So the first things we want to do is we want to delete all history on here. So we go to Modify, Freeze Transformations, and Edit, Delete by Type History. We're going to do the same for our control box, Modify, Freeze Transformations, Edit, Delete by Type, History. And the last one we're going to do is the control in here, and we go to Modify, Freeze Transformations, Edit, Delete by Type, History. So now that that's all set up, we can start doing the connection editor. Now I'm going to check out my sphere, and what I want to do is I want to do a squash and stretch on here. And right now, if I were to do squash and stretch, it would squash and stretch according to the pivot point. And I don't want that. I want it to squash and stretch for the floor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press D and V, and that way I can move my pivot point and snap it to the bottom. So if you look, we got a nice little snap on the bottom of the sphere, and we don't have to worry about that anymore. And I can move it up and down like this. Okay. So now if I squash and stretch, you can see it does it from the floor pivot instead of the center pivot, which is what we wanted. Alright. Now for the connection editor. We have both of our items here, and what we're going to do is we're going to go to Windows, General Editors, Connection Editor. And it will pop up with this nice little connection editor, and here we can see from and to, outputs and inputs. So what that basically means is on the left hand side here, this is what will be controlling the right hand side over here. And since we want the controller to be our control of the sphere, we're going to go ahead and load that into the left. And we want the sphere to be what's controlled, so we're going to load that into the right. Now that's all set up, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do a translate. So I want a translate of this control to control the translate of the sphere. And in this particular instance, since it's the NURBS curve, I don't entirely trust that this is actually the Y, so I'm going to go ahead and move it, and I'm going to check my channel box here and see what's actually moving. So it is translate Y, which is awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and find my translate Y and click that. And then I'm going to go into my sphere. And on the right hand side, that's where our sphere is. I'm going to find translate. Here it is. And we click translate Y. And now you can see that the translate Y is highlighted in yellow. That means that we have our connection, and it should work. In fact, I'm going to minimize this so you guys can see in detail. So here I have my control that can now control the up and down translate of the sphere. Which is just great. So now we want to do our squash and stretch. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go left to right is going to do our squash and stretch. This is our translate. Left to right is going to be our squash and stretch. And you can set up your control box any way you feel would work. But This is just for us to see the different aspects of being able to use the connection editor. So I'm going to go ahead and open back up my connection editor. There it is. Remember guys, if you want to open this up, it's Windows, General Editors, Connection Editor. And this time I want the translate X to control the sizing, the scale of the X axis. That's my goal. So I have the controller, and the controller's on the left here. So I'm going to go ahead and find my translate, and here's my translate right here. And I want the translate X to be what controls the scale. And over here I can find the scale. I'm going to open that up, and I want that to work on the scale of the Y axis. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And poof, flattens out. Now the reason for that is most likely because our translate here is not at 1. So the way we can fix that is we're going to Control Z out of that. And since this all the transformations on here are on our translates, X, Y, and Z are at 0 at the moment. When we made that connection to our scale, which is at 1, it flattened it out to 0. We don't want that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put these at 0 on the Y-axis. 0. So when we make that connection, they know that this is the 0 axis. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Got the translate X to the translate y, scale Y. It's connected. And then when I grab this guy and I put him on to translate, and I put him up to 1, sorry, translate X to 1, sizes back up. So now what I can do is I can grab my controller, and if I move it here, it stretches it. If I move it to the other side, it squashes it. And if I keep going, it will actually mirror it because it's going into the negative numbers. Now, if I want to fix a problem like that, what I would do is I would go into this controller and I would make it so that when it was dead center, instead of it being at 0 on the x-axis, it would be 1. And that would fix all these problems. But for this tutorial, it's not a big deal because we get the general gist of the connection editor.